this stage. Deputy O'Riordain.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to everybody for coming in. I suppose the idea behind the report was to take the debate about back-to-school costs away from a kind of a journalistic nicety in August, September every year, where it's forgotten about them for 12 months, and then to talk about all year round, so we could have some pragmatic approaches to the issue. And the issue, of course, at the heart of it is that families are struggling every year to come up with the cost, and nobody is denying that. You know, the funding to schools last number of years has come down as a result of the crisis in the public finances. But at the same time, there can be things that should be done from within this committee, and to try and have a kind of a leadership role to open up the conversation about this issue. And that's what we tried to do, is to launch the report last June, and not just leave it on the shelf, but to have yourselves in again. And of course, there has been some initiatives which have been welcome. Certainly the upcoming admission policy suggestions in relation to putting down deposits or whatever will be hopefully outlawed. The recommendations on the school book rental schemes have been well versed here, and also on the uniforms announcement during the week. There is an issue, I suppose, that I would like to touch on. I would like your response to is the issue of competition between schools. Because I think often when you have a system like ours, which has 4,000 schools throughout the state, in a state with a population the size of Manchester, obviously schools are under pressure to boost their enrolment, and as a result of which they try to present themselves to be more appealing to the parent body. And that's why extracurricular activities are put to the fore. That's why crested jumpers come into play. That's why things like iPads are all the range at the moment. So I'd like to maybe get your reaction to that. I think a lot of these suggestions that have been made are quite sound, and I think we have to have a deeper discussion about how schools are funded. I think the reason why the Finance Committee was introduced into the mix was to give maybe a clear picture as to what the financial constraints or pressures are on an individual school, and are the finances being spent in such a way that they should be. I mean, if a school can't heat itself and can't light itself and can't keep the children warm, well, then there's obviously a fundamental problem with the funding mechanisms of the school, and that has to be transparent, known, and the responsibility therefore has to go to the department to fix that. And it shouldn't necessarily be the case that we'll have another fundraiser. I mean, we have to put the responsibilities where they lie. So I just put that out there as well. I have to say, though, and following on from Deputy O'Brien's comments, I am a little bit disappointed, particularly with the JMB's submission, because what we're trying to do here is to have a collaborative approach to try and find answers. Now, I found your last presentation here to be at the best disappointing. I think the tone of your document is all wrong. I think it's bordering on sarcastic. I don't think it's constructive. I think that there is a vacuum from your point of view of leadership. If people around this committee were to take the same attitude in anything that we deal with, then nothing will ever be done. I mean, to suggest that you have effectively no voice when it comes to uniform policy, I think most people in this committee and most parents would find to be a bizarre statement. Now, we all know that schools are under pressure. Everybody accepts that. We all know that parents are under pressure. And it's the responsibility of all of us to try and find solutions. But to produce a document which is dripping with sarcasm, in my view, to offer no concrete, practical, positive, generous solutions from your point of view, to suggest that this committee is not living in the real world, and then to abdicate, in my view, absolute responsibility as to the cost implications on parents that are being driven by the uniform policy of individual schools under your patronage, I find that quite surprising. So if that's going to be the level of your engagement with this committee, well then I would ask you maybe to revisit it and to be a little bit more generous next time you come before us, because this issue isn't going away.
Right, okay. Deputy